Hi everyone and welcome back to a new episode of Diagnose Dan. Today we are working on a Skoda with a Volkswagen TSI engine. Skoda is part of the Volkswagen group and their cars are equipped with Volkswagen engines. Now this car came into my shop yesterday with cold misfiring problems. Now when I get a TSI into my shop and the customer complaint is about cold misfires, I immediately think about carbon buildup on the intake valves. A lot of technicians know that carbon buildup on the intake valves of direct injected engines can cause cold misfires, but only few know why. Now in this video we're going to do a few things. At first we're going to take a look at the intake valves on this TSI engine and see if there's really carbon buildup that might be causing our cold misfires. Then I'm going to explain why there is carbon buildup on the intake valves of direct injected engines. And then you'll learn why the carbon is making this TSI engine misfire when it's cold. And finally, we're going to try and clean the intake valves of this TSI engine using two different methods. The first method is cleaning the intake valves with my blaster. I'm going to blast one cylinder and then I'm going to reassemble the engine, and then we're going to try a product called Revive. Revive is claiming to remove carbon deposits from the inside of turbo and non-turbo gasoline engines. Now, if this is true and this product works, that would be awesome because blasting the intake valves is a very labor-intensive job and this would save you a lot of time. Does it work? I don't know, but let's find out together. We're going to start out by taking a look at the intake valves and see how bad the carbon buildup of this particular engine really is. I already partially removed the intake manifold and hang it to the side, so we get access to the intake ports and we can take a look at the intake valves with a borescope. In this video, I'll be using the Autel borescope that came with my Maxicom. I'm going to talk you through this picture and explain what you're seeing because the carbon buildup is that bad inside this intake port that a lot of parts are beyond recognition. We're looking down upon the intake valve and you can see the round shape of the valve seat in the far distance. This is the valve seal with the valve stem, and you can see that they're totally beyond recognition and totally covered in carbon. Now I'm going to start by saving a picture for the customer before we take a closer look at that valve. So let's push the camera a little bit further and you can see this is still the valve stem, how bad the carbon buildup really is. Now that looked pretty nasty. Now let me explain to you why there is carbon buildup on the intake valves and inside the intake ports of direct injected engines. In this animation, we've got two engines, a direct injected engine and an indirect injected engine. Although there are many differences between these two engines, to understand the carbon buildup inside the intake of a direct injected engine, we need to take a closer look at the placement of the injector. In a direct injected engine, the fuel is sprayed directly into the combustion chamber. That's why this engine is called direct injected engine. On a conventional indirect injected engine, the fuel is sprayed into the intake system before the combustion chamber and before the intake valves. Engines need to suck in air in order to operate. But with this air comes contamination, like oil vapor that is being sucked in via the crankcase ventilation. On a conventional engine, fuel is constantly being sprayed into the intake and thereby cleaning the intake ports and the intake valves. But on a direct injected engine, there is no fuel passing the intake system, and therefore, over time, the contamination will start to build up inside the intake ports and on the intake valves in the form of carbon. Now, over time, this will seriously start to affect the performance of your engine. In order to understand why a TSI engine has got cold misfires when there's carbon buildup in the intake, we first need to understand that a direct injected engine can run on many different modes. Now, not to overcomplicate this video, we are going to stick to the two main modes, being stratified mode and homogeneous mode. Right now, the engine is running in homogeneous mode. In this mode, the fuel is injected near bottom dead center. This way, the fuel and air have got lots of time to mix into a stoichiometric mixture, which is easy to ignite for the spark plug. In this mode, the engine is the most powerful, so the homogeneous mode is being used for high engine loads, but also when the engine is idling, because you want high torque available to get the car moving from a standstill position. Let's switch the engine from homogeneous to stratified mode. In this mode, the engine can run on a very lean mixture. Because of the lean mixture, the engine is also less powerful in this mode. So this mode will only be used under partial load conditions, like driving on the highway. In this mode, the engine is also more fuel efficient. The downside is that a lean mixture is very hard to ignite for the spark plug, so the engineers had to come up with a clever solution to ignite the lean mixture. Let's switch this engine from homogeneous to stratified engine mode. Now pay attention to this flap inside the intake manifold. When we select stratified engine mode, you will see the intake air is forced to take a certain path into the cylinder. Now because of this path and because of the shape of the piston, the air is guided towards the spark plug. Now because the fuel is injected on the very last moment, this vortex will carry a part of the fuel towards the spark plug, creating a rich mixture surrounding the spark plug, which is easy to ignite. This igniting rich mixture will set off a chain reaction and burn off the lean mixture. Now that's how this engine can run on a very lean mixture. So the intake on a direct injected engine is engineered in a very specific way to make sure the air-fuel mixture reaches the spark plug. Now if there is carbon buildup inside the intake ports and on the intake valves, this might disturb the airflow in a way the mixture no longer reaches the spark plug, causing a misfire. Now this effect is greatest at low RPM, when the airspeed is also low, and when the engine is cold, because a colder mixture is already harder to ignite. So basically, the biggest chance of misfiring because of carbon buildup is at a cold idle. But in the beginning of this explanation, I told you guys a direct injected engine doesn't idle in stratified mode, because you want high engine torque to get the car moving from a standstill, and you are 100% right. But there is one exception, the cold startup. When an engine is cold, we need to enrich the mixture to make sure the cold mixture easily ignites. In the old days, we did this using a choke. On modern engines, we make the mixture richer during the warm-up phase. But a direct injected engine can do a cold startup with a lean mixture, saving a lot of fuel during the warm-up phase. This is achieved by injecting the fuel at the end of the compression stroke, when the air is squeezed together and because of this already warmed up. Now this only works if the airflow carries the air-fuel mixture towards the spark plug. When there is carbon buildup, the airflow is disturbed and the engine will misfire. The misfires will disappear when the engine is warmed up and switches over to homogeneous mode. Now this, my friends, is the real reason for TSIs having cold misfires. Right now, I'm going to clean the intake port of cylinder number 1 using a blaster. Cylinder number 1 is going to be our known good. And later on in the video, we're going to compare this cylinder to the other 3 we're trying to clean with a chemical called Revive. Now, an important thing to know is that all cylinders, all intake ports, have about the same amount of carbon buildup. In this video, I'll be using the tune-up blasting kit. Now, this kit works very simple. It comes with a rubber hose, and one end of the rubber hose you stick into the port you're about to clean. The other end you hook up to a vacuum cleaner. Inside the hose there is a hole which you can stick your blaster into, and you can start cleaning your intake port. Now, this system uses granulate. Now, the excess granulate is being sucked up by the vacuum cleaner. Now, the great thing about using granulate to blast your intake port is if there stays any material behind, this can be dissolved with a neutralizer. So nothing stays behind that could potentially damage your engine. I'm done blasting cylinder number 1, and now it's time for you guys to see the end result. While I was blasting, I was checking my progress using a camera. Now, I deliberately left a little bit of carbon behind, just to see that if Revive doesn't entirely clean the other 3 cylinders, does it at least clean the little bit of carbon I left behind in the intake of cylinder number 1. In the next step, I'm going to reassemble the engine. Then we're going to treat the engine with Revive. Now, I've got to be 100% honest. Revive doesn't claim to clean the engine in just one treatment. Neither does it speak about the intake valves. It just generally speaks about removing carbon from the engine. But the reseller I got it from, he was very confident about the product, and he said he had some great feedback and had seen some great results of himself. So I really hope this works, because blasting an engine is very labor intensive, and this product could save me a lot of time and my customers a lot of money. Unfortunately, the product didn't work as good as I hoped it would. Now, it did have some effect, but not nearly enough to call this a repair. Now, I really hoped it would, because now I'm stuck to blasting those other valves again. Now, is Revive totally useless? Well, I guess not. If you're an owner of a direct injected engine and you use this on a regular basis, I guess you can stop the carbon from building up in the first place. Now, I really hope you enjoyed this video. And if you want to learn more, please subscribe to my channel. And when you hit the little bell, you will get a notification each time I post a new video. And remember, diagnose Dan, fixed it again. See you next time, guys.